Hello there, I'm Dave and welcome to my workshop. Now this video is a bit of a rehash of some material that I shot last year. Now for the Great Guitar Build Off 2021 I built a hollow body guitar, and in order to do that I needed to make quite a few jigs and tools, including a bending iron, a jig to make kerfing, a fixture to bend the wood, to help me bend the wood and frame it, a radiused surface that I could use to shape the back and the front of the guitar, and some violin clamps. And it occurred to me that because I'm making the same guitar again for the Great Guitar Build Off 2022, it might be helpful for anybody who's interested in making hollow body guitars to see how I made all these jigs. They're very simple, and so I've put a compilation together of all the clips that I shot last year while I was making these. And I hope you enjoy it. In this series I'm looking at the jigs and templates that I'm using to make my entry for this year's competition. So let's get going. Now I may have mentioned that for the competition I'm going to be building a hollow body guitar. This in fact is going to be an acoustic style hollow body guitar, and that's something that I've never done. So this is going to introduce a number of new challenges for me, and one of them is bending wood. Like this. Now then, this is a little test piece that I've bent with my soldering iron with a bit of pipe lash to it device, but I don't think this is going to cut the mustard, as it were, for the sides of the guitar. So I'm hoping that the contents of this box are going to provide the answer for that. So let's have a look. I should explain that you can buy wood bending irons, but I've done some research on the internet, and the cheapest ones in the UK I could find were about £300. The alternative was to get one from China for about £90, but then of course you don't know what you're going to be paying for customs. So it occurs to me that basically a bending iron is a piece of pipe with a base, and I found a plumbing company, well I should say Carolyn actually found one, and we ordered it, that supply these. So here we have a bit of pipe with a base. I've actually stuck a bit of aluminium in there, I've made a hole in it. Now then, I have a lamp holder, so my heat source is going to be a 40-watt bulb. There we go, I'm going to screw that into there. And I'm sort of rather cheating a bit because I've already drilled a couple of holes so I can fit the lamp inside there. So I've got a wire I can plug it in with. I've got this rather lovely end cap that'll just screw on the top there. Get the thing right. There we go. Look at that. Now then, the key to this, in my opinion, was this device. I understand from watching Ben Crow and having a look on the internet that the sort of temperature should be around, I don't know, 150 to 200 degrees centigrade. So, and it's quite important to try and monitor it at that temperature. So I needed a device that would do that, and initially I thought, well, why don't I just get a thermistor and build one with a, I don't know, an Arduino or something. But then it's not so easy because those sort of thermistors don't actually go to those temperatures. And then I spotted this. Now I think this was about £20 from eBay, so it really wasn't that expensive. But here we have a digital temperature controller, and it has the ability to switch a power source on and off. Now I'm going to have to look up the wiring. It also has this sensor as well, which can cope with temperatures up to 400 degrees C. So my temperature is going to be well within the range. So I've got all the components. I just need to see if I can put this thing together now. The idea for this wood bending iron came from another YouTuber, and I'll put a link to his video just up there. But obviously, if you're going to try to do anything like this, please be really careful and don't tackle it if you don't feel qualified. I started by drilling a couple of holes in the galvanized tubing so that I could attach the ceramic light holder. Then I cut a circle out of a piece of 2mm thick aluminium and drilled a hole in the centre. Then I made a fairly sturdy wooden box for all the components to fit inside, and to enable me to screw the tubing on the top. Fitting the temperature control was quite interesting, but fortunately I found a few people on YouTube who demonstrated how to set up the temperature controller. Right, so here we are. I've wired it all up and I've had it running for about, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, something like that. I've set the temperature to 100 degrees C and it says it's 78. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I thought what I would do is see if I can bend some wood. So, got a piece of wood. Going to spray some water on it. Oh, let's see what happens, shall we? Whew. Exciting stuff. Well, it's giving. It's giving, definitely. That's definitely bending, so I think that's a reasonably positive outcome. The proof of the pudding will be when we actually do the guitar sides, but I think this has made some progress today. So first I measured out a rectangle of ply that would be big enough for the guitar body. Then I cut out 3 rectangles the same size. Then I marked out the shape of the guitar on the top and the centre line and screwed them together. Then I cut the block in half so that hopefully I could get each side in my small bandsaw. Unfortunately, when I started cutting out on the bandsaw, I found that wasn't going to be possible. And at one point I nearly broke the blade of the bandsaw. So I used a mixture of bandsaw and jigsaw to cut out the rough shape of the guitar, and then I honed the shape on the Triton belt sander. A lot of this is about touch. You can feel the bumps much easier than you can actually see them. Okay, I'm pleased with how this has turned out. I've sanded it down to 240 grit. It's nice and smooth. It's 36mm high, which should be okay for the sides that I want to do. It's going to be interesting fitting sides into this. I can see I'm going to have quite a few little joins to deal with, but hey, that's all part of the challenge. So that can be put to one side. So what I need to do is to make this bigger, and the way I'm going to do that, I think, is just to put some pieces in between these pieces. So I'm not going to try and do the whole shape again. I'm just going to try and expand this out a little bit more. I've cut some spacers from this material, which is about 6mm thick. So what I'll do is I'll cut holes in it so it helps me line up the top and the bottom. So I'll just place those over the holes. Okay, now very carefully screw the top all the way down, hopefully picking up all the holes. These screws are a little bit long, so I'm going to have to just file the ends off. Okay, so now I've got a template which is just under 50mm, so that's more like it. I'm making a hollow body guitar, and to enable me to stick the sides to the bottom and the top, I need some of this kerfing. Let me show you how I made this. First of all, I need a strip of wood approximately 47mm wide. Now my miter saw or chop saw has an adjustment here that allows me to control how deep the cut goes. So I've set it not to cut all the way through. What I'm going to do is cut a slot in this piece of wood, just about there. Now I've got a strip of wood that I cut a while back, just a thin strip. It's probably an offcut of something, and it's just about the same thickness as the saw blade cut is in this piece of wood. So what I'm going to do, I need to slot something in because I need it to create a stop. So I'm going to push that into there and just mark on the edge there. Then I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to glue this piece into place. And I only need it sticking out a little bit, so I'm just going to mark it just about 5mm away from the edge of the wood there. And I'm just going to cut that off. Now then, I also don't need it to go right to the bottom, so I'm going to cut a bit of that off as well. And finally, I'm just going to chamfer that off with a file. Looking at the pictures that I've seen on the internet, I reckon the gap between each of the slots should be about 7mm. So I'm just going to put a mark at 7mm just there and cut another slot. I've also scored a line here which is level with the fence, so I know how to line this jig up in future. So what I'm going to do now is clamp it down like so. Okay, now let's see if we can cut some kerfing. I found a piece of sycamore offcut, and what I've done is I've cut some strips from it which are 15mm wide and about 10mm deep. So hopefully these are going to do the job. I've planed the back so they're nice and smooth, and I've planed the edges. Now the back is much too thin, so what I need to do is adjust this screw Well, after getting the adjustments about right, that seems to be okay. That is bending. I'm not sure whether it'll bend enough. Might have to cut it a bit narrower on the back, or perhaps shave some off the back. But of course, being a complete novice at acoustic guitar building, I went away and cut a few of these pieces out of some sycamore. Then I watched Ben Crow's marvellous video on his latest guitar, his acoustic, semi-acoustic guitar, and realised that I've made these much too deep and the back is too thick, so I don't think it's going to bend in the way that I want it to, so I'm going to have to cut some more. But at least I've got the jig. I just need to make an adjustment, cut the wood a little bit thinner, and I can go ahead and cut some more. So it's been a useful exercise. I've been watching Ben Crow build his Nebula 2 guitar, and it's a good job he's building it, because he's given me a lot of instruction on how to build the guitar that I'm making for the Great Guitar Build Off. And in the last video I watched, he was gluing the top on the guitar. I think it was either the top or the back, I can't remember. But my goodness me, he used a load of clamps, and he used these Violin Maker's clamps. And I'm thinking, well, who on earth has Violin Maker's clamps? Well, obviously a violin maker and Ben Crow. But unfortunately, I don't. But what I do have is this piece of wood, which is a leg from a table, a G-plan table that we had years ago, and I kept the legs because I think it's mahogany. I think it is, something like that. And they're not round, but they've hexagon shaped. So I thought, okay, I've got that. I also found some of these threaded rods. Now, in actual fact, these were left by the people who owned our bungalow before we arrived, and I think we might have found them in the garden all rusted up, and I've cleaned them up. But do you know what? I think with that and these and some sample flooring that we've got, vinyl flooring, I think I can make some of these clamps. So let's have a go. Of course, there's one other ingredient that I need, and that is a nut. Now, I picked up these wing nuts from the central aisle of a supermarket a while ago. Always keep a lookout for what they do there. In fact, I think these normal nuts were from the central aisle of a supermarket as well, actually. Anyway, so the big ones will work on this big threaded rod, but I've also found a smaller threaded rod, and these small wing nuts will work on that. So that's the nuts taken care of. Now I need to cut some of this. Before I launch into my production line for violin clamps, I'm just going to make one. I'm going to cut these hexagons to 15mm deep. I'm going to drill a 9.5mm hole in the bottom one, and hope that I can secure the threaded rod in there. Not particularly central, but I don't think that matters. I'm going to cut 100mm length of this rod. I've put a nut on the threaded bar there so that I can take it off the end that I cut, and hopefully clear up any problems with the thread. There we are. I'll just tidy up the end with a file. So this is going to be the fixed end, and this is where I've cut it out at a 9.5mm hole. So what I'm just going to do is bang this into there, this threaded rod into that, and I'll probably run some super glue in from the bottom at that level. Actually, that's pretty tight, to be honest with you. Okay, so now this one should just slip over the top with a bit of luck. There we go. And if I can get that on, and it might take a little while, but let's see. There we go. That should tighten up on there and allow me to clamp it down. So that's the general principle of it. What I'm going to do now is use some of this vinyl flooring just to cut some pads out and glue those on the inside of those two blocks. Okay, so that's one of them made. Now I think that that's probably not deep enough, so I think I could get away with making these narrower, and might even have to make the threaded bar a little bit longer. Not sure. It's about 55mm in there, so that might not be enough. Okay, well I've made 6 of these little clamps, and I'm going to leave them overnight just to dry, just to see, make sure the pads stick to the wood blocks. I've still got some threaded rod, I've still got some nuts and wood, so I can make a few more. I do need to keep a bit of this threaded rod for a very special fixture that I'm going to have to make next. Anyway, I'm going to call it a night tonight. I think this episode is going to turn out to be a bit of a Ben Crow appreciation video, because his Nebula 2 build is really helping me with the build of this guitar. Now, one of the things I want to achieve with the guitar is a very slightly curved top and back, like you would have on an acoustic guitar. Now, Ben had a CNC'd sheet of ply made with a dip in it. I don't have a CNC machine, but I just wonder whether I could create the same effect by taking a sheet of ply like this, building a frame round it and pulling it down in the middle, a bit like I make the radius blocks for the fretboard. I just wonder if it would pull it down enough to give me the dip that would enable me to mould the back and the top, and also, but also to sand the sides. So that's what I'm going to have a go at. First things first, I'm going to mark out the shape of the guitar in the middle of this piece of ply, just so I know what I'm working to. So that's it. I'll just judge it by eye. So let's just do a quick outline. Okay, now I need to find some timber for the frame. If you watched my Great Guitar Build Off series last year, you'll know that we had builders in working on the house. They were taking down an old garage at the side of the house, and I asked them would they leave the roof timbers for me. And this is them, and I've de-nailed them, so I just need to pick a piece suitable for this frame. That might do. My idea is to create 2 cross pieces of very solid timber, and to just create a slight concave shape in each of those timbers, and then use a bolt to pull the plywood down onto the timber to see if it takes the shape of that sort of concave surface. First, I'm going to cut the timbers down to size. Then I'm going to bandsaw them to about the same thickness, because they sort of taper off a little bit. Okay, I've cut these and planed them down so they're nice and reasonably flat. I'm going to make a cross piece now. Just going to cut a joint into it. I'm doing this all by eye. I think that's okay. Looks pretty good. So slight little faux pas there. I hadn't cut both of these pieces of wood to the same width. Now I've done that, so they're both exactly the same. So now what I'm going to do is just mark out where I need to cut this piece. There's always a knot where you least want it to be. Now it's not a pretty joint, but I think it's going to do. So that should go into there. Now then, I've had a slight change in plan. I was going to try and scoop this out into some sort of concave shape, but I'm wondering now if I use some of these pieces of wood as shims on the corners, I wonder if the pressure of pulling that down will pull it down and give me the sort of curve that I want. So I'm going to give that a go. So the first thing I need to do is to find a bolt that will go all the way through there. Okay, so I've just tipped out my reclaimed bolt jar and got some of these rusty bolts. I found this one here which may be long enough, and I've got some washers as well which I may be able to use. So that's promising. I've also got this bar that I'm using to make the clamps with. I'm pretty sure that something in here is going to do the job. So let's go and have a look. This bolt looks long enough. I think that's probably going to do the job. And I've got a couple of washers here. Obviously the trick is I don't want anything standing proud of the plywood. So whatever I do, I've got to sink the head of the bolt in there, and I'm hoping that if I use a washer, quite a wide washer, if I can find one wide enough, or a sheet of metal that's a little bit wider, that's going to spread the load and avoid just splitting the middle of this. And I'm hoping that, you know, I can pull it down. This is 12mm ply, so it's going to take quite a bit of pulling. This is a 12mm bit. I'm going to put through the centre. Just mark the hole on the plywood. I need to get this bolt sitting flush against the top of that washer, so I'm going to have to just file the hole a little bit more. I'm also going to take some of the top of this bolt off. This washer is 37mm wide, so I need a big force and a bit. This is a 40mm bit. This is all a bit trial and error, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill a hole through here for the bolt and then just try it. That actually is pretty flush. Now the question is the ply thick enough there to support this, or is it going to just pull through? I have a feeling it's just going to pull through. So I think I need to try a plan B. Okay, so what does plan B look like? Well, firstly I've taken some more off the top of this bolt, and secondly I've found this sheet of 2mm aluminium. So what I'm going to do is cut a square out of here and sink the square in just 2mm deep, with it getting slightly deeper in the middle. What I've done, I've routed the central area out slightly deeper to about 4mm. The idea is that that will allow this to pull into that shape. I might need to put some screws in on the corners of this just to hold this metal down. In fact, I think I'm actually going to do that. Just unscrewed all these because I've got a little change in plan. What I'm going to do is put the washer in there, like I thought I was going to do at the beginning. And well, let's see how it works. Okay, now to try and assemble this fixture. So first of all, I've got these little pieces of wood which are just over 5mm thick, and I'm going to put those on each of the ends there, and I think I'm just going to screw them down. Okay, now line the holes up. Now then, I think I'm probably going to need to raise it all up on legs, but for the purposes of this test, let's see if we can make do without that. In fact, what I need to do is turn the whole lot upside down. Okay. Okay, slight panic there, lost the nut. Okay, moment of truth. Spanner. Well, that looks promising. Okay, so I've done an initial tighten, and obviously this needs to be pushed in much more than it is, so I'm going to try it and do that in a minute. But before I do anything else, I want to know, has this given me that curved or concave surface? So let's get a straight edge and have a look. Yes, it has. And it looks pretty even as well. It looks like a gentle slope down from the edges. Gosh, I actually think this has worked. Okay, so let's see if I can tighten that up enough. What I need to do is to pull this into the aluminium. So let's really go at it. Just enough so that the bolt head is flush. Now then, that's pulling into the wood there, so what I'm going to do is turn it over, have another look. Now that's pulled down. Now then, in general, this is working. By tightening that bolt, it's pulling it down, and if I want to increase the curvature, I can actually just prop up these corner blocks that I've got. The problem is it's a bit uneven in the middle, so what I'm thinking is I've got this sheet of well, this looks like sort of a hardboard type wood that came off the back of a cupboard. Now then, if I stick this down on top of the plywood, then I should get a nice smooth surface that follows the contours of the plywood. It looks like it's in it yet, but it hasn't got all the lumps and bumps of the bolt. So, first things first, I'm going to increase the height of these blocks on the corners, and then I'm going to stick that on the top. Okay, I've glued and screwed on some feet on the bottom there to hold this off the ground so that the bolt doesn't touch the tabletop. I've now cut some bits of ply. This is 12mm ply, so I'm going to replace those pieces on the end there with 12mm ply, and we'll see how the whole thing works once we've done that. I'm going to see if I can get a bigger washer. Couldn't find a bigger washer, so what I've done, I've used a bit of that aluminium, just cut a plate, made a hole in the middle there, screwed it down. Apart from anything else, it holds these two beams together. I'll put a washer on the outside there, and hopefully that should do the trick. So now, if everything's gone to plan, should be a dip of 12mm in the middle. Which looks about right. Okay, well, I've cut out the piece of wood that's the back of the kitchen cupboard, and I'm going to use the nice side on the top there, nice and smooth. So I'm now going to screw and glue this down to the plywood so that it keeps the holds the contour shape that the plywood pulls to. I think it's been a reasonably successful afternoon. Thank you very much for stopping by and watching this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Well, I have to be honest, I had as much fun making all these tools and jigs and trying to come up with ideas of how I could create something as I did making the guitar last year. And well, it's proving to be really useful for this year's build. And if you're interested in making a hollow body guitar, then I would certainly recommend to have a go, because it's a lot of fun. Anyway, stay safe. I'll see you soon.